Okay, so I want to make this video and my cat is losing her mind out here, so we're just gonna let it happen. I'm not gonna start it over again. So craziness ensuing, it's fine. We're just gonna let it happen. In preparation for the new year, I have been thinking about a lot of things that I want to work on and what my goals are, and I'm moving into my 4th year teaching, and so there are some things that I feel like I've gotten a little bit better of a handle on. And one of the things that I love talking about and working on is discipline and how to help kids and get kids where you need them to be. And my friend Leanna posted this great article on Facebook about discipline, or I thought it was about discipline. And then a bunch of other people commented things like teachers need more money and bigger classrooms and bigger budgets and smaller class sizes, which is totally true and infuriating, because I feel like there's not a ton of dialogue, and maybe it's just because I'm not a parent and so I'm not like reading parenting magazines, and you know, there are probably, I'm sure, a million articles about how to discipline your child as a parent. But as a teacher, you know, we're working with this bizarrely restrictive set of rules and expectations and minimal respect from a lot of different people and places. And I think it is important that we continue to have a dialogue about it, and I'm not hearing that dialogue. There was an interesting, I think maybe it was something on NPR about doctors talking about when they mess up, and doctors not wanting to talk about when they mess up because obviously, like, they're life or death situations. And not that we're gonna like kill anybody on the operating table, but I kind of feel the same way about teaching, in that if we're doing our jobs right, we're making the world a way better place. And if we're doing our jobs incorrectly, we're screwing things up for a long time. So I think it's important that we talk about it. And I have had the distinct pleasure and privilege of working with really remarkable people at the school I'm currently at. There were a couple people that I used to work with that gave me some fodder for thought, and so I want to talk about it here, and then, you know, kind of open up the floor to comments and videos and discussions, because I love discussions. Oh my god, my cat. She's really cute though. Look at how cute. She's so cute and angry and fluffy, but she's really loud and obnoxious. So here it is. I find that as teachers, and often in like almost pseudo-parent roles, when we interact with our kids, we interact with them disrespectfully. Not because we mean to be disrespectful or anything, but because I think there's this kind of inherent ageism in the world. And, you know, it's like, if I can pick this kid up and make him do what I need him to do, then I'm gonna pick him up, you know? Or I know I can threaten to take this thing away from him or her. And there I just both used male pronouns to talk about trouble students. So there's another thing that I think is really interesting and important. And I try and be reflective of. I just think it's important that even though we can get them to do anything pretty much, that we think about how we do that. So I've found that it is important for me to acknowledge that I don't know my students' lives. It's easier for me because all of my students are Black, and so it's really clear that they're dealing with stuff that I have never had to deal with as a white person. But I think sometimes for people that teach classes that are more like them, sometimes it's easy to think like, oh, I know their life, I know how they're feeling, and we don't. We don't know their lives. And I think it's so important that we give them space to de-escalate, to explore, to figure themselves out. And I get that I'm in a situation that is super privileged in that I teach music. And so, like, I don't have a standardized test. I don't need to worry about that for my life, which is such a privilege. So I have time to spend sitting and talking and thinking about how we're going to get this better. So the things that I think are really important to acknowledge are, even if a kid is driving us nuts, they have a valid reason for doing what they're doing. It doesn't feel valid to us, but it does to them. And whether you think that their reason is valid or not, it's your responsibility to solve it if you want to get anything done, right? So figure out the language that they're speaking. And I'm not talking like English or Spanish or whatever. I'm talking, do they communicate with their body? Do they communicate in drawings? Do they communicate better with their friends? And that's just something that would be better talked out in a group, right? Let them know that they're heard and acknowledge the validity of their claims, even if you're like, oh my God, in your head. Acknowledge your role. I'm your teacher. These are the things that I need from you. How can I help you get there? And then give them the freaking tools. Don't say sit in the corner unless you have a really freaking good reason about why they're sitting in the corner. Do they need 10 minutes? Do they need to write it out? Do they need to talk it out? Do they need to call their parent? I don't know. I don't care. But as a teaching community, I think it's really important that we have those discussions. And I hope that this is like a thing where you're watching and being like, duh. But it doesn't always happen. And I know it doesn't always happen. And I have the privilege of seeing people who are really good at finding connective ways to help their kids. And I want that for everyone. Because 9 times out of 10, that kind of behavior, which is what they talked about in this article about discipline, speaking to the child like a human being, acknowledging their feelings, giving them the response and the result that they need, is effective. It just works. Not only forgetting what you need in your classroom, but for helping them grow and be and do. And I think to continue to give opportunities and options to one another to enhance each other's toolbox about how to do that is really sweet. The other thing about the comments about needing extra money and class size and blah, 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 that bothered me is, like, there's a certain amount of complaining that comes along with being a teacher just because it's a really hard job. And I think it is important and valid to air your frustrations to people that you can talk to and understand your life on a fairly regular basis. But I'm getting tired of watching people bitch about how they don't have what they need and they haven't done anything to solve it. And I'm one of these people, right? I haven't written my congressman, I haven't served on any committees, I haven't really done much to fix these things. So let's stop complaining and start fixing, because we knew when we got into this, or at least my generation of teachers knew when we were getting into this, that we were going to get underpaid, underserved, underrespected. That's the deal. Nobody's going in being like, I'm going to be loaded and people are going to think I'm so cool. It's not going to happen. And I want us to take some initiative, and even if it feels like we're never going to fix anything, to do it anyway. Okay, so there's that. I want us to fix things. I want us to treat our kids with respect. I want us to take initiative with our own lives. I guess the thing that I want to kind of leave this with is, I have obviously done a lot of growing in the past couple years. And I love talking shit. In my first year teaching, I talked a lot of shit about other teachers, about students, about administration, and I hated my job. I hated it so much. It was miserable. My administration didn't support me, but I probably exacerbated that relationship flaw by talking crap. And then last year, I pretty actively tried not to talk too much shit, and then this year, I tried to avoid talking poorly about the majority of students. There were some kids that make me want to rip my hair out, but part of the reason that I'm talking about this is I feel like I did a disservice to some kids last year in terms of like what they needed, because I had already decided in my head from talking crap about them that they were like a bad kid. And the way that we speak to one another behind closed doors eventually a lot of times does affect the way that we behave. And I think that that's something that's so important and worth thinking about. Like, is that kid an idiot? Is that kid driving you crazy? Do you want to rip your hair out? Yes. Be productive. Let it out and then move on. Even and especially with coworkers, is that person nuts? Are they rude? Are they lazy? Are they whatever? Sure, fine. If you're not going to fix it, don't talk about it. And that's probably going to piss some people off, but I think that's an effective way to go about it. And mostly this is because I have such faith in the work that we're going to do this year with my school and a lot of other people. You know, I think we're doing good work, and I think it's important and necessary that we continue to evaluate ourselves and make sure that we understand that, like, this isn't a normal job. Not only because we're totally disrespected, but because we have an obligation to be better people than we were before every single day. So, those are my thoughts. I hope I can do that. I hope everybody can do that. Let's go out of our way to treat our kids and one another with respect, and treat ourselves with respect. Give ourselves the time and space that we need, just as we would the kids, to recoup and recharge and be who we're supposed to be. Yep, those are my thoughts. Happy school year to all of you teachers and students and parents who are about to have free time again. And I have so much faith in the work that we're doing. Let's get it done.